You're watching a segment of The Splash, Greater West Bloomfield's news magazine show.
Welcome back to The Splash. I'm Brooke Allen. This week, I'm joined by Sally Wenczel from over at the West Bloomfield Community Garden, and we spotlighted Sally as our Person of the Week for her constant efforts to keep our environment clean, and she now joins us to discuss more.
All right. Well, I am in the first little row here of a huge garden, 66 plots. So I can't tell you the dimensions. They're about 20 by 15, each of the garden plots. And I'm just down the first lane here. Mine is right directly behind me. I don't know if you can see that, the tall sunflowers behind over my shoulder.
Yes, they're amazing.
So they're pretty tall. They finally bloomed. I'm really happy to see them blooming. So made a little sunflower teepee for the kids.
Right. So tell me how the community garden, I mean, it's growing sunflowers, it's growing fresh food, but it's more than that, right?
Yeah. Well, the dog park's right next door. You can hear it too. Yeah, it's, you know, there's so many different styles and techniques and philosophies out here, and you know, it's a real garden community. I would call it that, and it spans the generations. People bring their kids out here. You've got all the way up to seniors who've been gardening their whole lives, and they're just wealths of information. So yeah, it's a lot more than just growing food. I think it's a real community out here.
So tell me, how long have you been involved in this?
This is my first official year with a plot, and I had to get on a waiting list myself because it's become more popular with I think with COVID and people wanting to be closer to home and have activities locally. A lot more people were interested in this, so I finally have a little more time. My girls are a little bit older, so we were able to get in here and get a garden plot this year.
So tell me everything that is growing out there.
Oh, in my plot, or just okay? Well, I've got the sunflowers, so that's more for just like, it's a very kid-centric garden. I've got some really good sweet onions back there, and some carrots along the back row, and I've got zinnias in the little entrance. I like to do cut flowers, and they're like cut and come again. The more you cut them, the more they grow. I've got some beets, and I just seeded some chard and some rainbow chard and some turnips for the fall harvest. So what you seed now, you can still harvest all the way up through October, and those are cold weather crops. So those will keep growing and keep things interesting as the season goes on. And you also have a pumpkin, right? Oh yes, the pumpkins. Yes, my superstar pumpkin. I've been babying. I've got one really big one, and it's just, I put straw all around it. It's like my little baby in there, making sure that it doesn't get too moist in the mud. And I just checked, I have 2 or 3 more they're coming along about like that, and lots more flowers that need to be pollinated to grow even more. We'll see what our pumpkin harvest is like this year. I hope it's a good one. So tell me, how do you feel when you're out there? I mean, you told me earlier you love the outdoors, you love being outside. So tell me what this actually means to you. You know, the first time, I couldn't believe I hadn't really spent time here until this year. And I came out here, and just the way that WB Parks has left, a lot of this is like prairie. So it really feels like you're outside of the garden is like a wild prairie, and you feel like you're out in the country. And, you know, there's the barn back here. That's the original barn from the farm. And you really can't see, there's a few houses you can see, but really it's all nature around you. And it just, for me, that's, it just makes me feel like I can breathe, and kind of feels like I'm up further north than in a real urban, high population density place. It just, it's a breath of fresh air for me. What do you say to people who maybe always wanted a garden and they just don't think they can do it? Anyone can do it? I think anyone can do it. I was just talking to a guy about powdery mildew and how everyone's squashes are suffering from this because we've had so much rain out here. And I was joking with him, and I said, you know, gardening is kind of like a sport, and you're going to have more in the losing column because it is a lot about trial and error. and I've definitely had a lot of error, but you have to be willing to just accept defeat and then learn from that. And don't be afraid to ask questions from friends. And if you just put yourself in this environment, you will learn from your neighbors, and buy a couple of books and go for it. Yeah.
So you have 2 kids, correct?
Yes.
So you have 2 kids, and I mean, tell me what this means to them and what this teaches them to be out there with you sometimes.
Oh gosh. Yeah, sometimes like days like this, it's too hot for them, but we'll come out in the evenings and they immediately go into the teepee, their little fort, and they'll walk around and explore. And for them, it's, they like being around people. And my older ones, she can be pretty social. And I think for them, there's so many teachable moments that just arise from being in a garden. And so I find myself answering all of their little questions that they have about this and that, and they go and look for frogs. There's a frog that lives in our zinnias, a little green frog about that big. I think it's a tree frog. Just these little moments that they can enjoy, and they love seeing the wildlife and the bees and the butterflies and dragonflies. I mean, it's just like biology class out here. It's really cool.
Right, so it's almost like biology class and family time, quality time, all combined.
Yeah, yep.
Do you have, I know that you're a big gardener and you have a couple of books that you really enjoy, correct?
Yes, and these aren't really how-to, it's more of like, I should have brought some how-tos, but this one is, yeah, I'd love to share this with you. This is about eating seasonally. Called Full Moon Feast. A college friend of mine gave this to me, and it's really great because it goes through the seasons and how cultures all over the world grow certain things and how they've processed food over like the millennia, and it goes through each moon. There's 13 moons in the year, and what people grow and harvest. Here's a gardener. Somebody's braving the heat today. Somebody's braving the heat today. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So it goes through the seasons. And so like during the hunger moon, for example, in February, people traditionally would only eat what was in the root cellar, beets and turnips and potatoes and the last apple and some onions that are left over, and how that's actually really good for your body to eat locally and seasonally, and there's some recipes in here. It's really cool.
That is awesome. And what's the other one?
The other one is one of my favorite authors. He's a big activist, Michael Pollan, The Botany of Desire. So this is, it's divided into 4 sections, and he talks about how plants actually have manipulated humans into spreading them around the planet, namely the apple and the potato, for example, how these plants have become smart because they've made humans cultivate them and plant them. And it's a story, a plant's eye view of the world.
Interesting. Wow.
And how tulips were like thousands of dollars trading tulip bulbs back in I think it was the Renaissance or just after the Renaissance. Really cool book. And Michael Pollan, he's written a lot of great gardening books. He's big into freedom lawns and smart forestry, keeping wildflowers growing. He's great.
Okay, so one more question for you. What is your favorite vegetable?
Oh gosh, that's tough. Oh, favorite vegetable? I gotta say this season, it's radishes. I know that sounds kind of odd, but I really love this like Frenchy thing that I read about where you slice radishes and you dip them right in like fatty butter and you sprinkle it with salt. And you like radish in the butter, sprinkle with good sea salt. It's got to be the good, and then you just eat it like that, and it's snappy and fresh, and they have to be cold. And I actually got my 4-year-old to eat radishes that way, with the fat on there, the butter. So don't be afraid of butter.
Okay, well, I think we will try that. I'll see if I'll have my 9-year-old twins test it out and see what they say.
Oh, yes. You never know. You never know.
You never know what it's going to be, right? Well, thank you so much for taking the time. I know that it's a very hot day, and it's so bountiful out there. So
listening.
yes, I know, but thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. And we appreciate everything that you do for the community.
Oh, thank you so much for giving me the time. I really hope everybody can just take a drive out here, check it out. It really does feel like you're out in the country if you need a breath of fresh air and want to just walk around the park and join us.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Okay.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Drink some water.
Oh, yes, yes. All right, signing off.
Okay. We've been joined by Sally Wenczel at West Bloomfield Community Garden.
Thanks for watching this segment of The Splash. To watch the entire show or other segments, catch us on Comcast Channel 15 and AT&T Channel 99. Or look us up online at thesplash.tv and listen to us every week on 89.3 WBLD, the all-new Lakes FM.